Hi, it's Kellyanne, and today I am hosting the podcast. I'm taking over for Dane, and I have a special guest today that I know you are going to appreciate everything that she shares. Sue Hawkins, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And Sue is the owner of a professional organizing company called Clutterbusters in Chatham. And she has helped us on many different levels. And today we are going to tap into her expertise on decluttering, specifically for downsizing, because that is definitely an area that many people thinking about downsizing are overwhelmed by. So welcome, Sue.
Well, thanks for having me.
And I want to just start by, can you share a little bit about how you got into this business and why you started your company?
Thank you. Well, I have, back in the 80s, I had a decorating business. And so I've always appreciated beautiful homes. And then I also did a lot of cleaning for people. And I realized that the people that had a ton of things in their homes had a hard time finding beauty in it. And so I began to make suggestions, and they were happy to take my advice. And then Marie Kondo came on the scene with her whatever sparks joy. And I thought, okay, organizing is a thing, and I can do it for monetary reasons as well as helping people. So that's how I began.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I think everybody should be surrounded by beauty in their home. And as you say, sometimes that beauty is hard to see when you have too much stuff.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see, the clients you've worked with, that people face when they start the downsizing process?
Often when there's downsizing, they're coming from years and years of living in a space and collecting things. Often the clients are seniors, and so it's decades of memories. So the difficult part, as far as I can see, is trying to sort through all the boxes, all the bins, the things that are in the attic that have sentimental feelings for them, and they just, they have a lot of difficulty doing that, getting through the hard part, getting through years and years of things that they hold dear. It's hard to let them go. It's
funny. I was showing a young couple who are buying their first home, a home yesterday, and it had a basement, and it was a 2-story home with a basement. And they said, we can't imagine ever filling this basement with stuff. And I said, you would be amazed at what you accumulate.
It's true.
Over the years.
It's sort of like a woman's purse, isn't it? Like the larger the purse you have, the more things you can fit into it. Until it becomes like, getting a stick of gum is like going for an archaeological dig. It can happen very easily.
It can for sure.
Yeah.
So downsizing, I know because I've been through it, can be a really emotional journey. What are the most common emotional hurdles that you see people dealing with, that you have helped people deal with? Because not only are you a professional organizer, but you are such a kind and compassionate person that I know you work through a lot of those things with people.
Yeah, it's true. Generally, I try to say you don't have to hold on to the memento in order to keep the memory. For example, if the client has a place settings like for 12 people of her mother's dishes, does she really need to keep all 12 place settings in order to remember her mother with, fond memories? I suggest things like maybe just taking a cup and saucer or two and being able to remember her mother with that one cup of saucer instead of the entire place settings. That kind of thing.
Yeah, because I think it's that attachment that people feel to things,
yes,
right? That is so hard for people to let go of.
Mm-hmm. And they think if I get rid of this, I'm dishonoring them. I'm dishonoring their memory, and that's not true. But
no, it's not, because I think sometimes when we put things away in the basement and we never see them, to me that's more dishonoring.
Correct.
Than actually taking something out out that, that is special, and giving it a place of honor.
Exactly.
In your home.
That's right. And I always encourage clients to do that, to take things out of the boxes. And when they inherit things from, their parents or grandparents, to go through them and see how they can repurpose them and how they can put them on a shelf or somewhere where they will use them and remember their loved one.
I love that. And I know in your home, you did that with the silver. Can you share that? I love that.
Yeah. I was given, I inherited a couple of silver tea trays. And you only have two hands. You don't need more than one silver tea tray. And I have it hung on my wall, and it serves as a message board. So it works really well.
Yeah. So repurposing things. I love that idea. Yeah. So I think most downsizers have a mindset that I'm giving away or I'm getting rid of all these things. Is there a shift that people can make so that they don't feel like it's so much of a loss?
Sometimes when a client feels those, that angst about giving things away, it's because they're afraid of the future, or they're afraid of the past. If they give it away, they might think, "Oh, I might need it someday," and so for that, I have what I call the 20/20 rule. If they can replace it in 20 minutes for under $20, let it go. The other fear is the fear of the past. If I let it go, like I said earlier, I might be dishonoring them or losing a part of them. Yeah. The other fear that they have is, I paid good money for it. It was expensive. It was really expensive back in the day. And I say, by letting it go, you're no poorer than you are, and by hanging on to it, you're no richer than you are. So it's
true. And I think you also sometimes feel the guilt. If you hold on to things and you're not using them and you spent a lot of money, it's just reminding you
it's true.
That was maybe wasted money or things like that. So getting rid of it, you can kind of let go of that guilt.
It's true. Every single thing in our home speaks to us, I believe.
Exactly.
It says something to us, like it makes you happy or if it makes you sad. And the guilty clutter is definitely something that you can let go of.
Yeah. And I think everything in your home takes some kind of energy from you.
It does.
And so, releasing those things that maybe take a negative energy or not a great energy from you is a wise thing to do. So if I am a downsizer and I call you and I say to you, I'm starting the process. What do you recommend? Where do you recommend people start the process?
That's easy. With the least sentimental things, which typically are clothing. So we go into the closets and into the drawers. That's where we begin. Typically, I measure, if possible, if I know where they're going to be living in the future, we go into the space and measure it up. So we know exactly how much space they have to put their clothes. And then we go from there. And we take each item out one at a time and either keep, toss, or donate.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy process, even for some people with clothes.
That's true.
Is it?
That's true.
But you're right. Clothes are likely the least sentimental thing that you have. So when you talk about the different, what do you do with those things once you've decided, once you've taken them out and looked at them, what are your strategies then for, okay, now we've looked at this piece. What do we do with it now?
Well, I have a method where I have a green garbage bag or a clear garbage bag and boxes. And if it's something that they want to keep, you're talking about clothing now?
Anything. But we'll start with clothing. Yeah.
Okay. So if it's obviously ratty and awful and stained, it goes in the garbage. And I know it's hard because we're concerned about the landfill and that kind of thing. But if it's something that they love, we put it in a pile. And if it's something that they don't like, but it's still good, we'll donate it to the place of their choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of sorting. So each thing, it's almost like each thing you touch, then you make a decision on it right away.
Yeah. Every single piece of inventory. And I know it can seem overwhelming, but sometimes just sorting it, for example, like putting all your pants in one pile or all your jeans in one pile. You see, oh, do I really need like 15 pair of jeans? And then it becomes more easy to be able to make decisions about how many you actually need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you find in the people that you've worked with, are there, and this could be anything, not just clothes, but are there specific items that you find people tend to not let go of that maybe they should?
Yes, I think especially in the case of downsizing, little tiny tables are sort of the bane of my existence. I often have clients with these little side tables or little corner tables that belong to a grandmother or somebody, and they really serve no purpose in their new home, but they have a difficult time letting them go.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I must admit, I did have a lot of tables. I actually had to get when I downsized, I had to get rid of a lot of little tables because you kind of, when you have a bigger home, you put them lots of different places.
Yeah.
And and obviously the sentimental things,
Yes,
I'm assuming are a struggle.
Pictures are very difficult too. I know a lot of clients have totes full of framed pictures. Okay. And there's only so many horizontal surfaces to put these, pictures. So generally speaking, we try to go through them all, the ones that are framed, and pick the ones that they really love and want to keep. And then we also use like vertical space as well as, digitizing them, that kind of thing too. There's different ways of preserving the pictures without having to have totes and totes and totes of pictures.
Yeah, I've seen that idea of like kind of creating a book where you can put all your pictures in, and I know for me, many people I'm sure are the same way. When you start to look through your pictures, you realize so many of them are really garbage because they aren't showing anything important.
And they're faded.
Faded.
Yeah, the heads are chopped off. I know, an arm is missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, so I could get rid of a lot of pictures just by I didn't do that. That was one thing that I saved that I said I was going to do when I arrived in my new home that I haven't done yet. But yeah, I think it's the sentimental things that are always the most challenging. And I hear, lots of people my age who are looking to downsize, but who maybe just lost a parent. And then they take on all of the things of that parent who has passed. Right. And especially if it's a newer loss, I think it's I know even my mom had a lot of things and still has a lot of things from her mother that are in a box, but she never wanted to get rid of them.
It's really, really hard. And I never push a client. Everybody deals with grief in a different way. And some people are, my son-in-law, for example, actually today is the anniversary of his first wife's passing. And they got rid of a lot of her things, but not right away. And there's still a lot of things that his daughters, my new step-granddaughters, have that will never, they'll stay in the boxes forever, and that's fine. And we never tell a client what to get rid of or what to keep. It's a very personal thing.
And I think that's one of the things that I always encourage people when they're downsizing is to give themselves lots of time.
Lots of time, yeah.
Because and I know that doesn't always work because sometimes you're in a bit of a crisis situation where you have to leave your home. But ideally, you want this to be a process that you allow yourself to feel the feelings and to go through and to not feel like every day I have to do something.
Exactly. Yeah. Just at your own pace. And again, it's just a matter of picking up one thing or even spending like 10 minutes a day to say, okay, for 10 minutes, I'm going to look at this one box and then go through that box. And then at least you've made some progress. But it can be overwhelming looking at boxes and boxes of stuff, especially if it doesn't have any meaning to you particularly. Like I had pictures from my mom's friends who I didn't even know who they were. Right. But so those were easy to get rid of. But, things that, I wasn't sure about, you just need to take some time.
Yeah. And so when you're working with clients, because sometimes it's hard for us to look at our own things and to make a judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you never push anybody to get rid of something, but you ask questions, right?
I do, yeah. Yeah, well, and what does it speak to you? What is this? Does it bring joy to you? Does it make you happy when you see that? That's the main question, really. Have you used it in the last, year or 2 years, or unless it's seasonal, which those things you only use once a year? Or if you bought it, if you didn't have it, would you go out and buy it again? Those are questions that I ask. Yeah, does it fit? Does it make you feel good when you're wearing it? Can I use something else for this item? For example, I had a client with this Christmas platter. It was a bright red Christmas platter. It was really quite lovely. And she says, "Oh, I really love this." And I said, "Well, is there another platter that you could put your cookies on at Christmas?" And she did. She had a couple other platters. So she was able to let go of this.
Okay.
So you don't have to have a ton of platters, for example.
And that's what you bring to people when you work with them is that asking those questions and that ability to start to look at your things, to remove a bit of the emotion. Right.
And also I ask, is it serving your season of life right now? Like, yes, maybe you loved it back in the day and it was important to you and you used it a lot, but do you use it now? Or, is it something that you just wish that maybe in the future you're going to use? Maybe I'll fit into that dress, or maybe I will take up that craft. So I really need all those knitting needles, for example. Or is it serving your life right now? And I like to think that we just have one day at a time. So keep the things that are important to you for this season of your life.
And I think when you downsize, as somebody who has downsized, you are starting a new chapter.
Exactly.
And there are many things that you had in your last chapter that you maybe don't need anymore,
Exactly.
or they don't align with the life that you want to live at this point. And often for a lot of people who are downsizing, that new life has more freedom in it.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yes. And so when you have a lot of things, that doesn't feel very freeing.
I know. Sometimes your things, sometimes your things can own you instead of you owning them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They take up your time. They take up your resources. You have to clean them and cheer them.
Yes.
Store them.
Yes, exactly. That whole, going back to that whole energy thing, right? They take up a lot of energy. What are some common clutter hotspots? Now, this is not just for downsizers, but this is for sellers, because one of the things that when we go through a home as realtors and are helping people to get their house prepared to sell, we look at what we always tell people is this is still your home, but now it is a product.
Yes.
And so we need it to be as appealing as possible to the people who are going to look at it. So what are some of the clutter hotspots that you think lots of people, that's a good place to start maybe when you're selling your home?
Yes, if I was selling my house, the first thing I would get rid of is, I shouldn't say get rid of, excuse me. I'm going to have a bad throat here. Excuse me.
No problem.
The first thing I'd take down off the walls are personal things, personal achievement awards or pictures of my family, anything that speaks to my story, because potential buyers are going to come in and I don't want them distracted by how beautiful my grandchildren are, as opposed to like you say, your house is a product. The other thing that I think is very important is that prospective buyers feel that the house is spacious. And if you have all your closets jammed full of clothing, for example, it's going to appear that your home isn't spacious. So I would scoop out the seasonal clothes and make sure that there's space in your closet. Same thing with your kitchen. You don't want all the dishes, everything jammed into the cupboards and into the drawers, because, again, for prospective buyers, they do open your cupboards and they do open your drawers, and they're going to be peering into all your nooks and crannies.
Yep.
And if they're jammed and it's hard to open a drawer, the mind is, oh, this house is too small for me. I can't fit my things in it. So you always want to have space in your home. Clean out the basement as well. If you have to rent a storage unit and get things off property, just so that the basement isn't jammed as well, or attic.
Yeah. The one thing that I've had sellers say, well, people can look at my house and say, well, all that's going to be gone when I move in. But people are not very good at being able to do that.
They don't. They don't visualize.
No. So you have to make it as appealing as possible and remove as many things so that the new person or the possible buyer can see themselves in there. And if there's too much of you and too many of your things, it's really hard for them to do that. So yeah, I think we're on the same wavelength with that.
Yeah. And in the same way too, I would try and neutralize the house as much as possible. Like, yes, I have a lime green ceiling in my kitchen. It might not be to everyone's taste. I love it, but probably if I was going to sell, I may decide to paint it more neutral.
Yeah, exactly. Again, people not being able to see past those kinds of things, even though that's an inexpensive fix for somebody buying, but often they just can't get past those things, like vibrant colors in a house or dark colors in a house, right? We want to let in as much light as possible when we're selling. Sure. Yeah. So if we're looking at smaller spaces in downsizing, what are some of your favorite storage solutions for somebody who's moving to a smaller space?
Yes, that's a good question. Typically, I like to measure and know exactly how much space, because the client often thinks that they can get more into their new space and then they can. So if I actually have the dimensions, that's very helpful. I love stackable containers, and I know you can get expensive ones from like the Container Store and that kind of thing that are lovely. I prefer just to get the clear shoebox, $3 containers that from Walmart. They can store all kinds of things and you can stack them. I love labeling things because, of course, when you go into a new space, you can't remember, okay, where does this go, or where do the light bulbs go, or the batteries go? So putting labels on things is really helpful. Going vertically is great in a small space too. So putting up shelving, pegboard is helpful. Open shelving is helpful, that kind of thing.
Yeah, perfect. So so those are maybe some of the things, the ways, because the question is, how do you stay decluttered when you move into your new space?
Yes, that's a good question. So maximize what you have. I use like under the bed storage and, like I said earlier, vertical space. But then if you want to bring something else into the home, excuse me, I employ the one in, one out rule. So we have one drawer of mugs in our kitchen when we had our kitchen renovated, and I had this one pull-out shelf designated for my favorite mugs. Not all of them fit, so I had to choose the ones that I loved, and I've maxed out with all that space. But the other day I saw a mug that I really, really liked from a potter that I loved, and I had to do the one in and one out. And so if you have that rule in your mind, it also keeps you from making impulse buying, because a lot of times we buy impulsively thinking, oh, this will be great in my new space. But you just got to think, does it have a home? Is there a place where they can actually put it where it will not be squished into their new place, but be able to enjoy it?
Yeah, I love that one in, one out, because as you say, when you're shopping, if you're thinking, okay, I got to get rid of one of these things if I'm going to buy that. And I find now that I downsized, I buy much less than I ever did, because I just don't have the room for it anymore.
I know.
Which is a good thing.
It is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what is one piece of advice that you wish everyone knew before they started to declutter or downsize their homes?
I would tell you that your legacy is your personality. Your legacy is your character. Those are the things that people are going to remember about you when you're gone. And so to build on that, to spend time developing your relationships with your family, with your friends, with your neighbors, because they're not going to remember the things that you owned. Those things are not going to be as important as you maybe think they are right now.
I love that. That's so true. We place so much importance on things. And really, at the end of the day, they mean very little.
Yeah,
very
my daughter is a funeral celebrant, and she says never once have people at a funeral said, "Oh, and they owned that beautiful set of Limoges dishes." Never once, never once.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for all of the amazing tips and tricks and for your sharing your knowledge with us. How can people find you if they just like to learn more or if they're interested in working with you? Because you do definitely work with people who, even people who are not selling, who might be overwhelmed or who need a little bit of help organizing, but then definitely with sellers. And I think you have a special touch with downsizers, with people who are older and who maybe are having a harder time let go. So how do we find you?
You can just text me. It's Sue Hawkins, and it's 519-401-3052. Or you can find me on Facebook, Clutterbusters, home organizing.
Okay.
On Facebook is good.
Perfect. Or you can reach if you can't get a hold of Sue that way or you don't remember, you can always contact us.
You bet.
Because we do work closely with Sue on a number of different things. And actually, I'll just put a little plug in here. We have a downsizing event coming up at St. Andrew's Residence, and Sue will be speaking at that. It's an opportunity for people to learn about downsizing, decluttering, getting ready to sell, what downsizing might look like, and an opportunity for people to have a look at St. Andrew's Residence and also St. Andrew's Terrace, where you can actually purchase apartments. So it's a bit of, you get to see two different options for downsizing. And that is on March the 6th. If you're interested, just let us know and we will set you up for that. So Sue, I want to thank you so much for being here and for sharing your expertise with us.
Well, thank you. Sorry about the frog in my throat.
No,
I just kept
no
wanting
worries.
to jump out.
No worries. So thank you for being here with us, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.